The Zolthans approached Earth with the arrogance of having conquered dozens of planets in their galaxy. To them, Earth was just another resource depot. Its atmosphere was no different from a liquid that could be boiled away. Humanity's technology and scientific knowledge were, in the eyes of the Zolthans, like the toys of an evolving child. Aurochs, the young commander of the Zolthan fleet, was among those who most displayed this disdain. Even after observing Earth from orbit, they still haven't learned, have they? He asked his second-in-command, standing in the dimly lit bridge in front of a massive holographic map. His eyes scanned the lights representing their ships drifting through space. These humans don't have the technology to protect their atmosphere or their planet. They'll be on their knees within hours. His second-in-command, Nairin, nodded silently. Like his commander, he thought this war would be nothing more than a formality. On Earth, however, the situation was different. There was growing tension in the Pentagon. In Washington, D.C. Scientist Ryle was in a room connected to the U.S. Department of Defense, examining data on his screen. Changes in the atmosphere signaled the arrival of a massive threat from space. His face was covered in sweat as he constantly checked the numbers on the screen. The moment General Conroy entered the room, Ryle jumped up. "General, the situation is much worse than we thought. The incoming objects are about to tear through the atmosphere. This is no ordinary meteor shower. Aliens are preparing for an attack." The general tried to digest what Ryle was saying. His military experience quickly gave him a sense of the gravity of the situation. "How can we stop this attack?" he asked, his voice heavy but firm. Ryle placed his hands on the table, thinking for a moment. "Our atmosphere. It's a weakness for them. But for us, it could be an advantage. If we can use the ionization properties of the atmosphere, we might be able to push this attack back. We could even turn the atmosphere into a defensive shield." Conroy squinted. "You're turning the atmosphere into a weapon?" Ryle nodded. "Yes. If we manipulate the frequency and pressure correctly, we can turn the atmosphere into a shield that emits energy waves. This would penetrate their shields and hit them directly. We've already taken the first steps, but it will take some time to reach full capacity." General Conroy took a deep breath and made his decision. "Start immediately. We don't have time to waste." Meanwhile, the Zolthan fleet was rapidly approaching Earth. One of the first ships to enter the atmosphere was the Crawl, a massive warship gleaming with metallic armor. Aurochs walked proudly inside the ship. He paid no attention to the greenish-blue hues of the atmosphere. For Zolthan technology, it was nothing but an empty void that presented no obstacle. Suddenly, the ship's shields flickered. Engineers at the command station sounded the alarm. "Commander, the atmosphere is denser than we anticipated," Nairin said. "It's overloading our shields." Aurochs examined the data on the screen. "Nonsense. It's impossible for the atmosphere to thicken like this." But it was possible. Ryle and his team had succeeded in ionizing the upper layers of the atmosphere. As the ships pierced through the atmosphere, massive energy waves began to erode their shields. Aurochs's ship trembled violently, alarms blaring inside. Suddenly, the side of the ship exploded. Debris was hurled into the atmosphere, followed by a series of more explosions. On Earth, military leaders watched the scenes on large screens in their command centers. The atmosphere had become an energy shield, swallowing the alien ships. Some Zolthan ships tried to retreat, but it was too late. In the sky, humanity's first victory echoed with a brilliant burst of light. Amidst the explosions, Aurochs shouted in disbelief. "This is impossible. How are the humans doing this?" Ryle, watching the screen in Washington, muttered with a smile. "We're happy to show them that we use the atmosphere for more than just breathing." General Conroy turned to Ryle, standing beside him, and silently looked at him for a moment. Finally, he took a deep breath and spoke. "This is just the beginning." The first wave of the Zoltan fleet's attack had failed to realize that Earth's atmosphere had become both a shield and a weapon against them. Humanity had turned its greatest asset, the atmosphere, into a defense system. The flames of the exploding ships could even be seen from the planet's surface. However, this did not mean that the Zoltans were about to give up. Aurochs, though furious inside, gave the order to retreat. This unexpected resistance from a small planet was threatening his reputation. "Captain, most of our ships have either been destroyed or heavily damaged," Nyrin said, fearfully scanning the reports flashing on the screens. "This attack is not going as we planned." Aurochs took a deep breath. "This is not a weakness, just a mistake. We underestimated the strength of the humans. But now, we will develop the plan that will bring them to their knees. We will attack again." Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense. In the darkness of space, the Zoltan fleet was regrouping. After giving the order for a strategic retreat, Aurochs pulled his ship to a safe distance. He now needed time to revise his plan. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ryle and his team were working hard to stabilize the energy waves generated by the atmosphere. Most of the system had functioned successfully, but keeping this technology operational for long could prove difficult. In the Pentagon's meeting room, General Conroy and several military commanders were assessing the situation. "How much longer can we maintain this defense?" General Conroy asked, locking eyes with Ryle. "We are currently operating at full capacity," Ryle said, his fingers sliding across the screen. "But the Zoltans are trying to understand our technology. It's only a matter of time before they find a way to counter it." Conroy clasped his hands behind his back and took a deep breath. "What about the weaponization? Is this atmosphere purely defensive, or can we do more?" Ryle's face went momentarily blank. "Weaponizing the defense is our only option right now. But if we can channel the energy of the atmosphere towards their ships, we could go on the offensive." Meanwhile, new movement began in the sky. The Zoltan fleet was reorganizing. The ships that had retreated were now being reinforced with larger and more powerful assault ships. At the center of the fleet was the massive warship known as Skarl. This ship was equipped with the most advanced technology the Zoltans had developed to breach the atmosphere and invade Earth. In the command room of Skarl, Aurochs was fixated on the screen. As his ship slowly approached Earth, he activated his new attack plan as they reached the upper layers of the atmosphere. Commands were issued to the other ships in the fleet, reorganizing their energy systems and systematically scanning for weak points in the atmosphere. On Earth, alarms were blaring once again. Pentagon radars had detected the incoming objects. This time, there were more ships, and they were far more powerful. "They're coming back," an officer shouted, staring at the screen. "They're preparing for a much larger assault." General Conroy stared coldly at the screen. "Alert all defense units. Air forces, Navy, underground bases. Everyone must be ready. This time, we'll push them to the limit." As the Zoltan ships approached the atmosphere, rockets launched from the surface shot up into the sky. Intercontinental ballistic missiles and laser weapons were fired from Earth at the Zoltan fleet. Once again, the ships that entered the atmosphere were subjected to intense energy waves. However, this time the ship's shields were stronger, and they had been equipped with new techniques to breach the atmosphere. Several more Zoltan ships exploded, but Aurochs's strategic plan was now in motion. The technology aboard Skarl had pinpointed the weak points in the atmosphere. Ships began absorbing the energy waves, attempting to reverse them back through the atmosphere. Massive energy explosions filled the sky, with blue and green flames lighting up the heavens. In Washington, D.C., Military centers watched these scenes unfold with a sense of helplessness. The Zolthans were determined not to retreat this time. Ryle, watching the massive explosions on the screen, fell into deep thought. The only way to stop them is to amplify the power of the atmosphere. If we can create stronger energy waves, we can push this attack back. And how is that possible? General Conroy asked, his face a mix of worry and hope. Ryle turned to his team and quickly issued several commands. We'll increase the pressure in the atmosphere. Maximize the ionization. If we can raise the energy levels high enough, the Zolthan ship's technology won't be able to withstand it. As the battle raged on in the sky, the Zolthan ships began to once again succumb to the atmosphere's power. However, Skarl was still attacking at full force. One of the glowing ships in the sky erupted in a massive explosion. The Zolthans' plan had nearly succeeded. They had advanced to the lower layers of the atmosphere. But at that moment, Ryle's newly developed system activated. The increased pressure in the atmosphere disrupted the internal energy circuits of the ships. Suddenly, massive energy waves rose around Skarl. A chain of explosions followed, and the Zolthan fleet began to collapse. As the sky slowly returned to silence, the last rockets launched from Earth were clearing the remains of the enemy ships. Aurochs, on the bridge of his ship, sank to his knees, watching the final echoes of the explosions. It was all over. "This is impossible," he whispered to himself. General Conroy, surveying the battlefield, turned to Ryle. "Humanity has never seen anything like this. But we're still here. And we're here because we fought together." Ryle nodded, looking at the slowly fading smoke in the sky. "Yes, we're still here." After the crushing defeat of the Zolthan fleet, Earth's skies remained silent for a while. Humanity had a brief moment to catch its breath. But this calm was only the prelude to the coming storm. The Zolthans were not an enemy to give up easily, and Aurochs had not accepted defeat. As he gathered his wounded crew aboard his ship, he was buying time to devise a new strategy. Zolthan scientists were working feverishly on new technologies to counter Earth's atmosphere. Having lost most of his fleet, Aurochs was now determined to play his final card. His last remaining ship, Skarl, was the flagship of his fleet and carried the most advanced weapons the Zolthans had developed. This ship was equipped with an energy generator capable of piercing a planet's atmosphere. Aurochs's plan was to use this weapon to directly target Earth. His goal was to destroy the atmosphere and break the planet's defenses. As he made the final preparations aboard his ship, Nyrin turned to him. "Commander, we've pushed the energy output to maximum capacity. We'll attack the weakest points in the atmosphere." Aurochs's eyes gleamed with determination. "This time, we won't retreat. We will bring Earth to its knees." On Earth, the Pentagon and other military centers knew the Zolthans would return. Scientist Ryle analyzed the latest data with worry in his eyes. The atmospheric defense had worked, but he knew the Zolthans weren't weak enough to be defeated so easily. "They're coming," Ryle said, examining the data on his screen. "This time, it's going to be a much larger attack. They're planning to completely destroy the atmosphere." General Conroy stood in the corner of the room. His voice was firm, but there was a hidden hint of fear. "Then we fight to the end. Every military unit, every defense system will be in play. If we lose the atmosphere, it's the end of this planet." Around the world, armies and air forces went on high alert. Massive laser cannons, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and rockets were all prepared. A new wave of atmospheric defense was set up. The sky was preparing for the approaching battle. When the Zolthan ship Skarl reached orbit, the battle resumed. Skarl approached Earth's atmosphere like a massive storm cloud, while lasers and rockets were fired at it from the surface. But this time, the ship's shields were stronger. Laser beams hit the shields but couldn't penetrate them. Inside the ship, the massive energy generator was activated. Aurochs smiled as he watched the screen in front of him. Energy waves were being sent into the layers of the atmosphere. These waves reversed the ionization of the atmosphere, turning the air into a thin layer of gas. In the sky, massive energy explosions erupted. The atmosphere was slowly dissolving, and the protective shield was disappearing. On Earth, alarm bells began to ring. Everyone in the Pentagon was glued to the screen. "We're failing," shouted an officer, fear in his eyes. "The shields are dissolving. The atmosphere is weakening." General Conroy furrowed his brow and turned to Ryle. "Is there any other way to stop them?" Ryle, his hands trembling, typed a few commands into his computer. "There's one way, but it's incredibly risky. If we can gather the remaining energy from the atmosphere, we could reflect it back as an energy wave. It could destroy their ship, but we risk losing most of the atmosphere." Conroy nodded firmly. "That risk must be taken. We have no other choice." Ryle and his team worked feverishly. They developed a system to gather the remaining energy from the atmosphere and turn it into a massive energy blast. All the screens in the Pentagon were focused on this new defense system. Military bases around the world stood ready. In the sky, Skal continued to tear through the atmosphere with full force. With its energy generator, most of the atmosphere had been destroyed. People on the ground were beginning to struggle to breathe. The air was thinning, and oxygen levels were dangerously low. But then, Ryle's system activated. Suddenly, there was a massive explosion in the sky. The remaining energy in the atmosphere had been gathered from all around the Earth and launched toward the Zoltan ship. When the explosion hit Skal, the ship shook violently. Aurochs struggled to keep his balance on the bridge and shouted, "Energy systems are failing. Our shields are down." The massive structure of the ship was now being burned by the atmosphere's energy. The hull was breaking apart, and a chain of explosions followed. Finally, Skal turned into a giant fireball, exploding into pieces over Earth. As its fragments rained down like fiery debris, humanity watched its victory unfold in the sky. At the Pentagon, everyone exhaled deeply. The sky had returned to silence once more. The remnants of the atmosphere were slowly starting to recover, but it would take time. General Conroy looked at the screen and then turned to Ryle, taking a deep breath. "We did it." Ryle, exhausted but relieved, nodded. "We lost most of the atmosphere, but we're still here. Humanity survives." Earth had withstood the Zoltan assault. But this war signaled a new beginning for humanity. Now, the planet was not just Earth, but had taken its first step toward becoming a galactic power. With their eyes turned toward the stars, humanity would never be defenseless again. General Conroy quietly gazed at the sky. "Greater battles are coming. But now, we're ready. Earth will not bow again." I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.